Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. Fork scraped hard as my husband blurted it. The room held its breath, then broke. His mother stared at my belly like a verdict. I braced my hands on the table edge. I knew the sound I would replay for months. I'm Mara, 31. My pulse sprinted while the roast cooled. His brother leaned back with a tight smile. My husband reached for water and missed. I watched his hand shake like a faulty lock. Donor, he said again, softer. The word landed and rolled under every chair. His mother's mouth thinned into a careful blade. Whose child is this? Her napkin sat folded like a warning. Mine, I answered, and my voice did not crack. Ours, I added and pushed my chair closer. My husband stared at the table and breathed shallow. The baby kicked once like a gavel. No one moved for 3 slow seconds. His sister's phone lit up and flashed. She typed with quick thumbs and looked at me. Clinic or some guy, she asked without blinking. My husband cleared his throat and failed. The silence crawled up my spine. Licensed clinic, I said, and I kept it steady. Counseling, screening, consent, I added with measured beats. His father's jaw worked as if chewing stone. A chair leg squealed against tile like a siren. I felt the next blow lining up. Proof, his mother said, eyes fixed on my hands. Paper, dates, signatures, she ticked off like charges. My husband's knee bounced beneath the table, red light blinking. I opened my bag and hesitated. Bringing evidence made the night dangerous. He touched my wrist and shook his head. Not here, he whispered and looked almost green. Heat rose behind my eyes and stopped. If we stalled, rumors would drive tonight. I nodded because fear loves delay. Tomorrow morning, I said, and my voice cut clean. We bring everything. You read everything. His father looked at the clock and stood. His sister smirked like she had screenshots. My chest tightened with something sharper than dread. I never agreed to strangers in our blood, his mother said, hands folded tight. You agreed to silence, I answered, keeping my palms open. My husband flinched like I had swung. A future cracked somewhere I could not see. I chose not to chase it yet. We left before dessert hit the table. Cold air hit and I finally breathed. He walked fast and didn't look at me. I panicked, he said to the sidewalk. Street noise swallowed the worst part. You lit a match on purpose, I said, and my hands trembled. Better me than gossip, he threw back with a shrug. I stopped under the porch light and waited. He kept going 3 steps, then turned. Something in his face had already slipped. Back home, I spread the folder on the counter. He watched like it might burn a hole. They will ask for tests, he muttered, eyes darting. No tests, I said, and pressed the folder shut. Boundaries needed teeth before sunrise. My phone buzzed with a single message. From his sister, 3 words and a question mark. I typed a time and nothing else. My thumb hovered, then hit send. The future shifted a fraction to the left. He leaned against the door and stared at me. Tomorrow fixes nothing, he whispered with a grim laugh. Tomorrow sets the ground, I answered and felt steadier. I placed my hand on my stomach, one firm circle. The baby answered like a small drum. My phone buzzed again before dawn. I answered on the second ring. 9 sharp, her voice clipped through. Bring everything. I stared at the dark screen after it ended. The house felt like a trap with ticking walls. He paced the hallway and rubbed his temples. We could cancel, he muttered without looking up. I slid the folder into my bag and zipped it. We move, I said, and kept my hand steady. On the steps, he stopped short and swallowed hard. They will push for DNA, he breathed through clenched teeth. We already drew that line, I answered and took the keys. His shoulders rose, then fell like a busted bellows, warning enough. Traffic crawled and his phone lit up nonstop. He turned it face down and closed his eyes. If they ask who he is, he started, then trailed. We keep it anonymous. I cut in and watched the light change. He nodded once, yet his jaw refused to relax. At a red light, a new message flashed from an unknown number with a short demand. Confirm infidelity or accept testing, the text read cold. My stomach clenched and heat rushed high. Someone outside the family had entered the ring. I screenshot the threat and saved it. Your brother, I asked while watching his profile tense. He shook his head once and stared ahead. Could be a cousin with too much time, he muttered. Whoever it was wanted humiliation on tap. We parked and sat in silence for 5 beats. Last chance to walk, he whispered toward the windshield. We walk in, I answered and opened my door. Retreat would poison every next step. Inside the entryway she waited with crossed arms. No hello, just a thin line across her mouth. Documents, she said and tapped the table twice. I placed the packet on like a live wire. His dad arrived with a blank notebook. He opened it and clicked a pen with crisp rhythm. Names and dates, he requested without looking up. I slid the top sheet forward and met his eyes. Today would leave marks either way. I pointed to the timeline and the signatures. He traced each line with slow care. Clinic stamp, he noted and drew a small check. The room listened to the scratch of ink like a metronome. I held my breath through every stroke. Lena stood in the doorway with folded arms. She aimed her camera at the papers, then me. I raised a palm and shook my head once. No photos, I said, because leverage matters. She rolled her eyes and backed off half a step. He reached for the consent page and paused midair. My name stays because I chose this, he whispered to himself. That sentence surprised both of us and it hung there. His mom glanced up without softening. I watched his spine straighten by a notch. Explain the selection, Lena threw across the room. Profile criteria and physical health, I answered with little air. No personal identity revealed at any point. She snorted like she had caught a loophole. This was the exact pit we had prepared for. His dad flipped to the counselor letter and read aloud. Joint sessions completed with full understanding, he noted with a tick. The matriarch shifted in her seat but kept still. Proof did not soothe her, but it fenced the argument. Fences matter when tempers want blood. A quiet buzz rolled across the table, her phone face up. A message previewed with a familiar surname. Bring a lab or we assume she cheated, it read. She rotated the screen slowly toward me. Someone had rallied reinforcements while we slept. Who else knows? I asked because containment had fractured. She lifted a shoulder and didn't blink. Family cares about lineage, she replied like it was weather. Anger rose sharp, then settled into focus. The fight had officially widened. He stepped closer to me and rested a hand near the folder. No swabs, he said to the room with a clear edge. His voice shook but held through the end. For the first time since last night, he chose a side. My pulse slowed enough to hear the clock. Lena laughed once and leaned on the doorframe. So we just take it on faith, she tossed out. You take it on paperwork and boundaries, I returned. I tapped the signature line with my thumb. Evidence replaces faith when trust is thin. His dad placed the pen down and exhaled hard. The process is legal and recorded, he concluded without flair. We can live with truth or chase a scandal. The matriarch's mouth tightened, but she didn't move. Victory here would never feel clean. Footsteps sounded in the hall. His brother arrived late. He took one look and smirked like he owned the room. Group chat is on fire, he bragged while unlocking his phone. I pictured our lives as a headline with rotten comments. I decided to blunt that blade before lunch. I will post a statement after we leave, I announced and gathered the papers, short and precise with no private details. He met my eyes and gave the smallest nod. He understood that silence had cost us enough. His mom finally spoke with a calm that chilled me. You forced this family to swallow shame, she said evenly. I felt the kid under my ribs answer with a kick. You can spit it out or keep it down, I replied steady. Her glare promised this was not over. We stood to go and chairs scraped hard. Lena blocked the doorway with a raised chin. One last thing, she said while holding up her phone. A picture of my car outside last spring filled the screen. Explain why you visited the center alone. He looked at me with raw panic, then waited. I remembered that afternoon with perfect clarity. Because he could not leave work and a slot opened, I said. I handed over the appointment receipt with time and location. The trap snapped and missed flesh by inches. Lena dropped her arm and stepped aside reluctantly. Clock is ticking, she muttered as we passed. Outside, I breathed deep and counted to 5 slow beats. He reached for my hand and finally didn't flinch. The day had more tests waiting. I opened the Notes app and typed the first line. He hovered behind me and read each word. Short and clear, I said while my thumb shook. We both knew once it went live, we could not pull it back. Use we, not I, he murmured with his arms crossed. Own the choice together, I answered without turning around. He exhaled through his nose and nodded once. The tiniest show of courage still mattered tonight. I wrote the boundaries in blunt bullets and paused. He pointed at the line about tests and swallowed hard. Non-negotiable stays, I told him and held his stare. He tapped the counter twice, then leaned closer. The statement fit one screen after I cut it tight. No names of clinics, no dates beyond the timeline, no bait for trolls. We would feed them nothing useful and everything final. I pasted it to my profile and hit publish. His hand landed on my shoulder and pressed down. For a beat my chest eased, then the alerts began. The screen pulsed with comments piling fast. Early replies were cautious and plain. A few relatives posted hearts that felt hollow. Then the flood turned sharp with loaded questions. I watched the tone shift like a door slamming shut. Lena posted a subtweet with a burning match emoji. Her friends cheered and asked for details. I screenshotted and saved it without replying. Documentation felt like armor I could lift one-handed. He reached for the phone and scrolled hard. Don't read them, I urged and moved it away. They want a scene, I added and locked the screen. His jaw worked and then finally eased. A number I didn't recognize called twice. I let it ring out and checked the text that followed. Press request for comment, the message read flat. A local blog with a history of messy scoops wanted a quote. Decline and block, I said while my stomach flipped. He nodded and rubbed his eyes with his knuckles. We were now content for strangers with nothing to lose. That thought made my spine feel electric. My inbox pinged with a note from HR. Saw your post, reach out if you need flexibility, it read. Relief washed through me and then vanished. Flexibility would not slow a family on a mission. Another alert hit with a different sting. A cousin created a poll in the private group. Would you test to stop rumors? The caption asked. Votes stacked up on the wrong side fast. He stared at the tally and stepped back. They think silence equals guilt, he muttered into his sleeve. Silence equals privacy, I answered and held my ground. Privacy had to survive this day or nothing would. The counselor's number flashed and I picked up quick. Her voice stayed calm and deliberate like it always did. Name the boundary again out loud, she prompted gently. I did, and the words felt heavier but steadier. Prepare a single response for repeat questions, she advised next. Use it unchanged every time, no debate. I wrote the sentence exactly as she dictated it. A script would keep me from bleeding in comments. A car door slammed outside and footsteps approached. My heart jumped and I peeked through the peephole. His brother stood on the porch with a smug look. He texted before knocking like a countdown. I opened the door a hand's width and held. 2 minutes, I said and kept the chain on. He flashed his phone with a new message thread. Screenshots of our statement sat next to laughing reactions. I can end this today, he started with fake concern. One cheek swab, then peace. He lifted a small kit from his jacket pocket. The sight hit like a dare made for an audience. Behind me, my partner stepped forward and stood tall. No, he said with his chin lifted. The word landed heavier than any proof. His brother blinked, then tried a thin smile. Then you ride the storm alone, the visitor warned. He turned on his heel and left without another word. I shut the door and slid the lock with a firm click. The baby rolled once like a drumbeat in the quiet. My phone buzzed again with a new direct message. The avatar was blank and the wording careful. I think I'm connected to your clinic file, it read. I need to speak with you privately. I froze and read it twice with dry mouth. He watched my face and waited for the blow. Someone claims they're linked to our file, I whispered slowly. The room shrank while another alert chimed behind it. I typed back one line, who are you, and hit send. 3 dots blinked then stalled. My palms went damp while the next ping landed. Not here, can we talk by voice? He watched my screen and shook his head once. Trap, he warned with a flat look. I opened settings and toggled call recording. If they pushed boundaries, I wanted proof. I called from a secondary number and waited. A steady tone clicked, then a careful voice. I handle intake at your clinic, the stranger began. My throat tightened, but I kept breathing. You are contacting me off the clock, I said. Papers rustled through the speaker like dry leaves. A relative of mine used the same donor, they replied. Your post set off a quiet scramble. Why reach out to me? I asked with my jaw locked. Someone in your circle is digging for identity, they answered. I can see metadata on our portal access. I pictured familiar surnames testing doors. Is it a staff leak? I pressed with heat rising. No, the attempts are patient side, came back gently. Multiple logins from one household and a cousin nearby. The pattern sounded uncomfortably specific. He leaned closer and touched my wrist. Ask for timestamps, he whispered with eyes on the phone. I repeated the request and waited. Numbers arrived that matched last night's frenzy. Thank you, I said and forced calm. I will report harassment if this continues. A pause stretched until it creaked. One more thing, the voice added with a slow inhale. I am likely related to your donor. They continued, not direct shared grandparent through an old line. My stomach flipped as a new door cracked. I wanted you to know before rumors warp it. Do you seek contact? I asked as steady as I could. No, they replied with quick precision. I want the portal locked down and the login flagged. That sounded like lifelines being tied. I ended the call and set the phone down. He exhaled through his teeth and rubbed his brow. We cut access for them today, I said. He nodded like a soldier taking orders. I drafted an email to the counselor with urgency. Bullet points only and the timestamps attached. Request for extra security sent with high priority. I asked for written confirmation by end of day. A new message thudded into the group thread. His brother posted a selfie with a test kit. Caption dared us to prove courage with spit. The replies turned loud and ugly. We respond once, I decided and opened the script. Medical decisions are private and final. I posted it without adornment and locked replies. The rage bounced off a wall I needed intact. His mother sent a direct note within minutes. Your broadcast disgraces the family name, it read. Appear at Sunday dinner and submit. My chest went cold and then hot. He stood at the sink with both hands clenched. I will not crawl for approval, he said like a promise. The sound carried something new and solid. I met his eyes and felt ground return. The clinic emailed back with a red banner, 2 accounts flagged for repeated failed entries. Location data pinged within 3 streets. The window for quiet action was closing. I forwarded the alert to a lawyer recommended by HR. Short description. Attached screenshots. Request for a cease and desist draft. My finger hovered, then pressed send with a small shake. Lena pinged me privately with a single sentence. If you hide, I will look harder. I replied with the same one-line boundary. Our choices are not up for vote. She left me on read and added a sad face. Another call came from the quiet intake worker. Security tightened, they reported with brisk focus. Also one note, your donor marked limited recontact. The word limited hung like a key above a lock. Meaning possible updates only, I clarified for both of us. Yes, they confirmed and lowered their voice. Medical alerts, nothing more without mutual consent. Relief and unease collided in my ribs. I thanked them and ended the call. He leaned against the frame and studied my face. We can win this, he murmured, voice rough but clear. I wanted to believe that line without blinking. A car rolled slow past our house and stopped. My skin prickled as the engine idled. A flash popped from a phone outside the window. I moved sideways and felt the baby twist. He pulled the curtains and spoke low and firm. We leave through the back and drive to your friend. I grabbed the essentials and tucked the phone away. We would not perform for their cameras. While we packed, a final text arrived from unknown. Check the church bulletin Sunday, it read. Announcements matter more than papers. I stared at the screen and a new dread spread. They were planning a spectacle and expected us to bow. We slipped out the back and cut through alleys. He carried the bag while I checked the street. A car eased past slow, then stopped again. I felt watched and picked up pace. At the corner, I called Nora and kept my voice low. Doors open, she answered over TV noise. We reached her place and slipped inside fast. He bolted the latch with shaking fingers. I forwarded the legal draft to the family thread. Short subject, one line inside, cease harassment or receive formal notice. I hit send and waited for the first flare. His mother replied with a hymn lyric as a jab, then a screenshot of the bulletin template followed. Announcements close at noon, the caption read. The clock hissed inside my head. Meeting now, I told him and opened maps. Pastor's office, I added, grabbing my coat. He looked tired but squared his shoulders. Running would feed them for weeks. We reached the church office and rang. A volunteer sized us up and stepped aside. The pastor greeted us with professional calm. His eyes moved to my stomach and back. "No public shaming on Sunday," I started without small talk. "We will not be named from the pulpit." I slid the printed letter across his desk. He read and folded his hands. "People are confused," he answered in slow cadence. "Clarity helps a congregation settle." He leaned back and tried a gentle smile. I felt heat rise behind my ribs. "Clarity means truth, not theater," I countered with steady breath. "Our medical choices are not a spectacle." He glanced at the clock and cleared his throat. He was buying time for a call. He dialed someone and turned the speaker off. We waited while muffled voices traded barbs. His face tightened, then loosened by degrees. He ended the call and faced us again. "Compromise," he proposed with careful words. "A general ire for peace, no names." My partner stood taller and crossed his arms. "No implication of sin," he added hard. The pastor nodded and wrote a single line. "Private family dispute, pray for unity," he read aloud. I stared until the silence turned heavy. "Remove dispute," I said and held his gaze. He crossed out the word with one stroke. "Private matter, pray for strength," he corrected. I pulled the paper closer and snapped a photo. Receipts stop revisionists when memory slips. We left the office and reached the steps. A camera flash popped from the sidewalk. A teen ran off laughing before I could react. I knew that image would surface by dinner. Back at Nora's place, my phone vibrated nonstop. A cousin posted a poll about boycotting our baby shower. The comments spiraled into quick cruelty. I logged off and breathed through a tight chest. Nora handed me tea and turned down the volume. "Rest for an hour," she urged with soft hands. I closed my eyes and counted slow. The baby rolled once like a warning bell. He paced the kitchen and rehearsed lines under his breath. "My body is not gossip," he practiced with clipped rhythm. He repeated it until the words felt carved. The change in him steadied me. An email from the counselor hit next. "Expect a spike at service," she warned bluntly. "If they escalate, leave and document." I replied with a short thank you and nothing more. Evening brought a fresh strike from Lena. "See you at church," her message read bright. "We sit front row for your confession." I pictured cameras hidden in jacket pockets. I drafted a post for morning and saved it. 2 sentences, 0 flourish. "We worship without trials today. We will exit if targeted." I would publish it 5 minutes before the bells. Night stretched thin and refused to crack. We lay on Nora's pullout and stared at the ceiling. I planned exits and counted breaths. He reached for my hand and held on. Dawn came with heavy air and steady rain. We dressed fast and kept our heads down. I tucked the lawyer's letter in my bag. Prepared beats brave when crowds gather. The parking lot filled in tight rows. People watched us like we were late performers. I met no eyes and kept moving. The foyer hummed with quiet speculation. We slipped into a side pew and stayed standing. The bulletin lay folded where we sat. I opened it with one finger braced. My pulse thudded in my ears. There it was under Community Notes, prayer for unnamed family facing questions of lineage. My stomach dropped and then hardened. This was a masked blow with a grin. I leaned toward him and whispered our plan. "If they read it, we walk out." He nodded once and set his jaw. I slid my phone to record. Insurance against revision later. The choir finished and the pastor stepped up. Microphone crackled and then cleared. He held the paper we had edited. He paused and looked straight at us. "Before the sermon, a special notice," he began. My fingers tightened around the seat. He unfolded the page with ceremonial care. The room shifted like a single creature. My partner stood on instinct and I rose too. The microphone popped once, then settled. "No trials," he called out with a firm voice. Heads turned and whispers rose like steam. The pastor lifted a palm and frowned. He scanned the pews like tracking prey. "Let me finish," he urged in a measured tone. The congregation leaned forward as one. I felt the baby push and then settle low. I kept breathing and counted to 3. The next words would decide everything. The mic hissed and the first syllable formed. Private matter, he lifted the page and shaped the next word. My partner's voice cut clean across the pews. We are leaving, he declared with his shoulders squared. I hit stop on the recording and stood fast. A murmur rose like a slow boil and climbed. 2 rows over, phones tilted up like little periscopes. Lena's camera flashed from the aisle with greedy aim. I slid past knees without apologies and faced the doors. The pastor tried to speak over the ripple. Let us pray for, he attempted with practiced calm. No trials, I answered and kept moving. The room folded in on our backs like weather. In the foyer, a deacon blocked the exit, palms up, pleasant smile. 1 minute to clarify, he offered with soft menace. I met his eyes and lifted the lawyer's letter. Read the 3rd line, I said and held it steady. He scanned, blinked, then shifted sideways. We stepped through while whispers chased our heels. Outside air hit like a switch. On the steps, his mother appeared with quick strides. You embarrass us, she hissed under her breath. You refuse a simple test and call it boundary. Her purse twitched like it hit a verdict. My partner planted his feet and lifted his chin. My fertility is not theater, he stated with a rough edge. You feed gossip and call it love. The silence that followed felt heavier than scorn. She looked at me instead of him and aimed low. That child will grow up with questions, she warned Ku. Ellie, we can settle them now and save pain later. I felt the baby tighten under my palm and hold. Pain comes from spectacle, I answered without blinking, not from planned conception with consent. She flinched like the word consent stung. Behind her, Lena angled closer for sound. A young usher rushed out waving the bulletin. It's printed already, he sputtered with nervous energy. We cannot reprint 10 minutes before service. My partner pointed at the line with one finger. Cross it out and read nothing, he told the kid. The usher stared, then pulled a pen from his pocket. He drew a thick bar across the sentence with shaking hand. That small strike felt like a hinge turning. We stepped off the curb and headed to the car. Footsteps followed and a voice called our names. His brother jogged beside us with a smirk. One cheek swab and this dies today. Offer withdrawn, my partner replied without slowing his pace. He opened the door and waited for me to climb in. You brought a kit to a sanctuary, he added flat. That line left a dent I could hear. Before we pulled away, the pastor reached us again. He leaned down to my open window with regret. No names will be spoken, he promised in a quiet tone, but people will speculate anyway. They already do, I answered and clicked the belt. You control the microphone, not our bodies. He stepped back and echoed a tight nod. We left to the sound of a hymn starting behind us. At Nora's place, we regrouped at the table. I posted our 2 sentences at the scheduled time. We worship without trials today. We will exit if targeted. Comments surged and then hit my locked gate. My inbox pinged with the attorney's reply. Notice drafted. Delivery set for Monday morning. I forwarded the file to the group thread. Lena replied with laughing emojis and a dare. A number I recognized from the clinic appeared next. Security patch deployed, the intake worker texted briskly. Access attempts down after geofencing. I pictured the blocked logins slamming into a wall. Minutes later, the family thread exploded again. A screenshot of the crossed-out bulletin line made rounds. Caption mocked us for vandalism. The irony burned enough to make me steady. I typed a single response and sent it. We removed an inaccurate line with permission. His father reacted with a checkmark and nothing more. That mark sat there like a quiet witness. The pastor's sermon uploaded by afternoon with edits. I skimmed the transcript for hidden barbs. None appeared, just bland words about unity. Blandness felt like a win I could accept. After lunch, my phone rang with an unknown caller. I let it go and checked the voicemail instantly. A curt voice offered a tabloid payment for our story. My finger hovered over delete, then pressed report. He paced in short lines and finally stopped. Therapy starts Tuesday morning, he announced without looking away. I already confirmed the appointment. The sentence landed like a bridge finally built. I watched his hands unclench and stay open. That change meant as much as any letter. I will attend the first session, I told him gently. He nodded and swallowed like the choice tasted new. Evening brought a knock we both felt in our bones. His father stood there alone with a folded note. He stayed on the mat and shifted his weight once. No entourage, no phone. "I came with 3 sentences," he began and held the paper. "We mishandled this. I will stop the test's demand. I will moderate the thread." He looked at my stomach, then away. "Add 1 more," I requested with a steady voice. "Public board posts cease now." He held my gaze and then wrote it down. The pen squeaked and the point cut through a thin layer. He passed me the paper and waited. I read each line until they settled. "This is accepted once," I told him softly. "Any breach and the lawyer files at sunrise." He folded the note and tucked it away. "Understood," he answered with a tired face. "Dinner next week with just us 4, not a command, a question left open on purpose." "We will choose the day," my partner replied, "and we set the topics." His father nodded twice with relief. He left without pushing for longer. My phone vibrated with a final message from Lena. "Uncle made you soft," she typed with a venom flourish. I muted her thread and blocked her number. Quiet spread through the room like a held breath. Night edged in and the house settled around us. We ate in silence because words were a finite resource. He reached over and pressed his palm on my belly. The kick thudded against his hand like an answer. "Name 1 thing you want tomorrow," I asked after the moment passed. He looked at me and picked each word carefully. "Coffee on our porch and 10 minutes of nothing." A small ask that felt like a flag planted. I washed the last dish and dried my hands. The counselor texted a reminder and a short affirmation. "You held the boundary in hostile space," it read. I steadied my breathing and let that line soak. Before bed, I wrote a message to the intake worker. "Thank you for guarding what we built," I typed slowly. "If rules allow, send updates only if urgent." The reply came quick with a simple yes. We climbed into bed and faced each other. He spoke in a low voice that didn't shake. "I told the truth to hurt you first," he admitted. The words trembled anyway, even without his voice. "I survived it and I am still here," I answered. "Next time we tell the truth to protect us." He closed his eyes and nodded once. That vow felt like it belonged to both of us. The phone lit up one last time on the nightstand. A text from his mother with 3 words waited. "We will not test. No apology, no heart." I stared at the screen and waited for anger. Instead, I felt a door unlatch, not swing wide. A start, not a finish, but enough to sleep. He rolled closer and tucked his forehead to mine. "Tomorrow we breathe," he whispered into the space between us. "Then we keep building." The room held that plan like it had weight. I reached for his hand and placed it back on my belly. Another strong push met his palm in reply. We lay there counting the beats between movements. Outside, the rain finally slowed and our clock kept time.